Hi everybody, Madison here at Cinesamples. We are here at the iconic Newman Scoring stage with scoring mixer Damon Tedesco. Damon, thank you so much for spending some time with us today.
Happy to do it. Should be fun.
Let's talk a little bit about the history of the Newman Scoring stage.
Sure.
Tell me about how it got to where it is today.
Well, it was built in the late 20s, and at that point it was 100 by 75. You know, it was big. And then in the 70s, they shrunk it down, and this became, where we're sitting, it actually became a shooting stage. This was stage one. So it was about half the size of the original stage. And then in the late 90s, they decided to redo it and get it back to its original state. So now it's back to 175. Shooting stage is gone. This is a giant new control room. As of 96, 97 is when they reopened. And it's an amazing facility. So it's the same size and dimensions as Sony Scoring. And from what I hear is they were designed by the same person. So Sony and Fox scoring stages were designed by the same people.
Wow.
Yep.
With all of those structural changes, what can you tell me about the sonic journey that this stage went through?
You know, from what I hear is that it does sound like it used to back in the day. I guess in when it was a lot smaller, they used it primarily for, they did use it for features, but there was a very, very busy TV stage where they would just record TV shows constantly and do scoring for TV. And that was really, really busy. And then once it got back to its original state, it regained that sonic quality.
Okay, very cool. What are some characteristics of the Newman Scoring stage that set it apart from other stages in the LA area?
Right, that's a good question. I think from what a lot of times I can hear it from a musician's perspective. So when there's people out there, it's very clear. You can hear people from across the room. It's not real bouncy, like it's not just a big giant reverberant chamber. It sounds very even and it's very controlled. So you can have brass and winds and strings all play together, and it's all very well balanced. People hear each other, and sections don't overwhelm the other sections, which is pretty great when you're trying to do a film score. So you can record everyone all together, and it works out great.
That's great.
Yep.
So when it comes to the sampling world,
right,
and having the stage for that,
sure,
how can that sound be? Give us an advantage for sampling?
Right. I think when you're trying to sample a room like this for whether it's brass or strings or percussion or woodwinds or whatever, I think really what you're trying to do is capture the cinematic sound of it. So I think what we all did on this intentionally is to try and give it the cinematic sound of near mics, mid-room mics, far mics, and surround mics. And then you can kind of dial in to the taste of what you're programming around it. So that works out pretty well to be able to try and match what you're trying to accomplish.
Great. When we were here doing the brass sampling session, can we talk a little bit about the placement of mics, the use of mics, and what that means for the final sound?
Sure. I think on any film or television show, I think there's always that balance of room mics, close mics, and tone, which you might get from ribbon mics, and then you might get the brightness from condenser mics as room mics. So it's kind of a balance between all of those elements. And the nice thing is we did a lot of sampling shootouts where we had other microphones duplicating the same instruments to try and figure out what we like the best. So it was a really great experimentation for the actual room itself, because a lot of times we're under the gun and we go in and we record and then we move on and we only get to hear the room when we go to the next film. This was, in particular, a great experience because we can actually listen to the room and then do an ABC microphone situation where we're actually checking out different microphones in the same source, whether that be condensers or ribbons or combination of the two. So it worked out great. Yeah, it was fun.
That's awesome. I want to talk a little bit about your history as a scoring mixer.
Sure.
And also what it was like working with Armin Steiner,
right,
and just that relationship there.
Sure.
Yeah, can you tell me a little bit about that?
Absolutely. So I got here in 96 as an assistant stage person and a stage manager. So that means coordinating all of the engineers that come through here, and stage layouts and microphones and running all the microphone cabling and preamps and setting up the stage. And for many, many years, I did that at Warner Brothers before that. So for many years, which I think I thought it was going to be like a 5-year plan, it turns out to be 25 years to just keep going. But for me, it's an incredible experience to be able to learn from each of these recording engineers that come through here. Armin Steiner was an incredible mentor to me, where I learned a lot from him in this particular room. And Armin was a on-staff engineer, scoring mixer for decades here. So he knew the room better than anybody. So I was really fortunate to learn from him. It was amazing. There's also other engineers, Sean Murphy and Danny Wallen and Al Schmidt. So it's that caliber of engineers. I'm really fortunate to get to learn a lot of stuff from them. Dennis Sands, which you know Dennis.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and Armin Steiner, he was mentored by Alfred Newman. Was that
He was brought in.
He was brought in by Alfred Newman? Okay.
So, yeah, I don't know the history of that. I don't know Armin's relationship. I know he was here for so many years, and he worked, strictly with the music department here. So he was in an amazing situation of being on the same stage for, I think it was 30-something plus years, if not more. I'm not sure. Yeah, amazing.
Can you tell me a little bit about some of the movies and TV shows that have been recorded here?
Sure.
Some of your favorite projects that you've worked on?
Absolutely. I would say the stuff that was recorded here in the last, 20 years that had blown me away is The Matrix with Don Davis. That was done here. And it's funny because we just finished Encanto, which is up for the Academy Award. So it's amazing that there's such a span. Silverado was done here. So some iconic scores, Pirates of the Caribbean, all those were done here. I mean, it's just incredible. I mean, there's so much material that was done here. And then the TV shows, we do Family Guy, or I do Family Guy and American Dad with Walter Murphy as the composer, and that's pretty awesome. Yeah. So that's a real treat because it's live scoring. Maybe every other week or so. And we get everyone together and we record like old school as far as that's concerned, all live mixing. So we do the live mix, and then after the few hours, then that live mix gets printed and that goes to the show. Wow. So it's cool. It's my favorite kind of mixing. Yeah. It's fantastic.
So I imagine working with, you said Walter Murphy,
yeah.
right? After a period of time, the length that you have, what he's looking for sonically, right, in a mix sense.
Sure, I try to. I mean, the amazing part of that whole relationship is that Armin Steiner was with Walter for many, many, many years, doing American Dad and Family Guy. So I was an assistant on all of those sessions for 10 years, 15 years or whatever. So for me, it was great because then I was able to move in that position. Armin and Walter, I got the gig and it was great. So it was a really nice transition for me because sonically, I already kind of knew where Walter was, and I had the experience of knowing and working with Armin over the years. So, yeah, a lot of gratitude for both of them.
What is that relationship typically like between mixer, audio engineer, and composer with projects?
Sure. I mean, I think it varies from project to project. A lot of times, whether it's a film or a TV show, you kind of find out ahead of time what they're looking for. And if you can get some sonic examples or even other score examples, and then kind of try and hone in on that. I think there's so much temp love that people put out there, and then they give that to their client. And a lot of times you're trying to beat the demo, which is incredibly difficult sometimes because you get into a scoring stage like this, and you don't want to beat the demo. You want to, you want to just blow it out of the water. Sometimes you can, and then other times you don't know, because the client loves what they've heard for, 2 months.
A long time.
So so it's a lot of a combination of dealing with the client, dealing with the composer, dealing with producers and directors. So it's kind of a dance.
Wow.
Yeah.
Have you seen that process evolve over time, or from the time you've been here and the time Armin has spent?
Right.
What's changed? What's evolved?
I think that there used to be, and sound like an old codger, but I think there used to be more trust in the client just trusting the composer and making sure that they deliver what they deliver. I think now with picture that's never locked and editing that's just always constantly happening, I think the teams have gotten a lot larger, whether it be composing teams, writing teams, editorial is crazy because there's so much editing that has to happen. Even if you do a recording and you do all your stems, then that goes a lot of times to an editor and they're reconforming as things are happening. So we might think we're finished and then a few weeks later, oh, we have a pickup day for 3 hours that we need to, we did some editing and now we want to do this shot in this area in this time. So yeah, there's a lot of that. So I think just because it's non-linear and everything kind of keeps moving and bobbing and weaving, I think it's more difficult now than ever.
Yeah.
So
absolutely.
Yeah.
Tell me a little bit about how you got your start in the industry.
Sure. My father was a studio musician. His name was Tommy Tedesco, and he was one of the busy guys in the 60s, 70s, and 80s. He was always working. And for me, I kind of grew up I didn't go to a lot of sessions, but in high school, I went to a few sessions, and I was like, whoa, this is super cool. And at that time, I was, into audio and into DJing and just having, gear. And I kind of said, I want to go to school to learn how to do this. So then I went to Loyola Marymount University, went through the program, and then got a job at a recording studio and just kind of literally just kept going. And then I went to Warner Brothers Scoring and then Fox Scoring. And so it's been a long haul, but I think if you just stick to it and keep going and keep your reputation clean and work hard, I think it's possible.
Your career has taken different rabbit trails that you didn't necessarily expect, right?
Sure.
What was it like adjusting to those, embracing those, and getting to where you are now?
Yeah, I think what's different, my original plan was, okay, I want to become a scoring mixer. And that was like when I'm 21 years old, right? And then I started getting into live sound, so I was going to do some live recording, which is very similar to scoring because you're live mixing in a theater or club or anything like that. And then that's very similar to live scoring because you have to react at the same time. While I was doing that, I got a job as a sound effects editor at Warner Brothers, did that for a little bit. I did some dialogue editing. I mean, a lot of these skills you kind of go, oh no, is this pulling me away from what is happening? And I think really it's just skill sets that get all added into one big thing. Because when you're working and recording and doing things, you'd be shocked how much you can learn from the skills that you learned 5-10 years ago. So yeah, it's really good. I mean, I think the thing now that's difficult, which I feel fortunate, is there was a lot of mentors. Like I worked on the Fox lot, I worked on the Warner Brothers lot. There's a lot of engineers and a lot of mixers and a lot of editors, and there's a lot of people around you, so you get to learn things from them. I think it's difficult now because there's, recording schools that there's tons of people coming through, but there's not a ton of mentorship. So there's a lot of kind of like, good luck and look at YouTube and, maybe learn some skills. But so I think that's missing. But if you can hook up with people that are much better than you and you can learn from them, I think that's huge. I think that's important.
If you could leave a message for 21-year-old Damon,
right,
or anybody that's in that stage of figuring things out in this field, what would you say?
I would say it's not a slow uphill climb. It's literally like boom, and then up, down, up. And I think that's the really scary thing because you go through and you think, okay. What is going on here? I'm beating my head against the wall. All these, and social media is rough because you get to see the greatest hits of everybody else. So you see, oh my God, that person got this gig and now they're moving here and now they're working for this, and you start bumming out. So if you can just wipe that clean and know that's like a greatest hits of somebody's life and just say, okay, I'm doing my thing. And really it's just keeping at it. And being passionate about it and constantly learning. I think that's the other thing is people kind of go, oh, I got this, and they just sit, and they just rest on their laurels. I think it's super important to just always learn, join groups, work hard. I mean, I recently just got accepted into the TV Academy, and I'd like to thank Tom. Yeah, thank you. thank Tommy Vicari for that. He was my sponsor on it. So he's another legendary scoring mixer. So for me, it was great to be admitted into a group like that, and then now you start learning from other professionals. Yeah. So I think that's the biggest thing, is that you can still keep learning all the way through.
Tell me what you learned from the mic shootout. So
we'd place similar mics out on stage, whether it's 2 condensers or 2 ribbon mics, and we do a shootout of listening. I think what I was shocked about is that when you get to the high quality caliber microphones and the high quality Grace preamps and things that we used on the stage, it's so subtle. That's what was shocking. I thought it would be like, oh, this one's gonna blow this one away. And I was like, oh wow, pretty close. Certain things were different, but for the most part, it was very similar. So I think that was a surprise, because you look at a $5,000 mic and you go, this can't be as good as, this has got to be blown away if it's a $1,200 mic. And sometimes it's not the case. It's surprising. So that was one big answer.
Wow. Yeah. So it seems like quality of microphone, while it's extremely important,
sure,
placement is just as important as well. Can you touch on that a little bit?
Sure, more? Absolutely. I think in a space like this, it's got such airspace. It's a gigantic room. And over the course of many years and many engineers coming through and my experience of this room and recording, I think microphone placement is amazingly important. You can get great quality mics, and if you place them in the wrong place, it's not going to happen right. So I think that was the biggest thing I have to say that I learned from Armin Steiner and Al Schmidt, is that great microphones, great instruments, great placement. And then you can look at your console when you're done and you realize there's no EQ, there's no compression. It's all open and sounds great because of the balance that you've created with the microphones that you've needed. So yeah, it works out great. I think it's really, really important.
So without having to even touch the console to
sure,
get that great sound,
right,
you're going back in history.
I think that's what's amazing about this space. You've got old RCA 77 microphones or 44BXs or any of these vintage microphones, and we have a hallway of amazing photos of this room that have those vintage microphones. What's crazy is you look at those pictures and you realize, wow, there's only maybe 8 or 10 microphones for the whole orchestra. So you figure, okay, they're getting the balance of the orchestra as things are happening live. Those might all get some to mono for many, many years, and then stereo, and then quad, and everything else. So I think that's where great microphones, great placement, and great musicianship really matters in this room in particular. I think the surprising thing is when you get people that have come here and haven't worked this room very often, you kind of push up the mics, just the room mics, and you go, whoa, that's the sound. And you don't know why, and you just realize, okay, that's the sound of film.
Damon, I really appreciate your time today. Thank you so much for
Absolutely.
everything. And
thank you.
We're so excited for this new industry series and for your expertise in this project and all upcoming projects. So thanks.
You're very welcome.